workshop. So, yeah. As I said, well, Lorenzino has introduced the project, the APIs for digital government. The APIs in the context of government, I will very briefly explain that the main atom of interest of the APIs is that are connectors that enable machine-to-machine communication. This statement makes it possible that government can have interactions both with internal groups and with external actors. The API solutions purpose, scope, and accessibility come by design, and that means that API solutions can range for a very, very large range of complexity and simplicity, and that has to be taken into account when defining strategies and trying to identify what is the scope and the the purposes of any API applications. So we have a lot of opportunities and challenges that we have to understand when thinking about designing API strategies. What are the opportunities that we think they are most relevant for governments? APIs are means to encapsulate access to data. Are also means to expose functionality, and they enable usability monitoring. These, all in all, provide governments means to get to a very overall goal of getting digital. We have then the challenges. Most of them are coming from the fact that if we don't take into account that APIs isolated on their own have to talk to others, we can very easily become, if we don't have the ecosystem mindset, we will very easily get to Tower of Babel dilemma. So a lot of API initiatives that do not talk to each other and that are silo-based and not useful. But the fact that APIs provide you means to monitor the usability, for instance, it's already a step forward to get to seize this opportunity to overcome some of the challenges that we have. Sorry. What is it? We've tasked you already to contribute to our survey on API strategies. The motivation for this service was to first understand goals, challenges, and opportunities for government, indeed, in three different horizons: long-term, medium-term, and short-term. So in the long term, we understand that the overall goal of API strategies might be related to the fact that most governments right now have in mind that they have to be digital by default. They also may have to have consideration the API economy and how to ensure that API European markets are competitive to other API markets around the world. The medium term will be tackling the capacity building, both in infrastructure and skills, and also will have to take into account organizational arrangements or rearrangement. And in the short term is more on the implementation and operation. So once we have decided that API solution is the way to go for public service provisioning or public administration objectives, then the technical aspect will have to be tackled in this strategy. The second motivation is indeed related to the former one. Once we understood what were the goals and the opportunities and challenges, then we have to understand what are the policy requirements and instruments that can be used at European level. The policy instruments that could be legal, organizational, financial, and technical. So from the legal, is there any need for setting up legal acts or to amend any current regulations? For the organizational ones, do we need to set up new agencies or bodies, or maybe only new profiles in existing bodies, or the setting up of umbrella committees that are able to provide support to the decision-making on the adoption of API solutions? Financial, indeed, we will have to understand and put numbers on cost and benefits, but not only that, on the implementation side, but also on trying to facilitate the setup of the API ecosystem. Do we have to fund to define any funding mechanisms, financial mechanisms to facilitate the entrepreneurship on APIs, and so on and so forth? And the technical, it's more on the operational scope. We will need to, what is the need to set up programs to upgrade the skills of civil servants? What kind of assessment frameworks have to be put in place to understand what technicalities are applying to the solution, the problems that we have, and the setup of guidance and recommendations. So we get to the results. I'm going to present now the first analysis, an early results analysis of the outcome of the survey. The first thing that I'm going to do is to describe you the sampling. We had 130 questions that were separated both on the actual strategies implemented and working right now, and the ones that are foreseen. We have 15 samples so far, 10 national, 4 local, and 1 international. We observed that there was already some ecosystem reflection on the sampling, because we already see that we have private and public company, partly owned by the government, and 2 consortium of private and public stakeholders, which for us was already quite a good aspect to reflect, to remark. We have ongoing strategies. On the ongoing strategies, 40% of the cases do apply to the whole organization that we're representing, and in 30% of the cases are related to other ICT strategies in the organizations. Only 1 organization has declared to have done any impact analysis, and the age of the strategies are quite relatively young. The oldest was from 2014, but 5 are planned to start this year. So we have, from the sampling, we have 6 already ongoing strategies, 7 that were that are in the planning, and 2 that are not thinking of having any strategy whatsoever. The first thing that the next step that we analyzed were the goals and some financial aspects of the strategies. So from the goals, we observed that we have different goals. Some of ours are long-term, so like defining legal and institutional requirements, facilitate the connection with external actors, which is organizational goal, improve data chains and optimizing usability of data. This has come out very often, that the APIs are understood from the government for data provisioning, as a data provisioning mechanism. And it's interesting, and we will reflect on the breakout sessions on this issue, why governments are not taking into account the possibility of also using and facilitating functionality through the APIs provisioning. And then some other goals that were much more technical. Sorry. The financial aspects were interesting. So the range of strategy budget was wide, from less than 50K up until 1 million euro. This is normal because obviously the scope of the strategies is rather wide, and also some of them are very sectorial, so they do not but we would like to explore these issues later on the breakdown sessions. On how the strategies are financed, again, there was another time coming out the fact that we have to think in ecosystems. So an API is nothing on its own. It has to become a part of a very well-defined ecosystem. On the government business models, we've seen that most of them do not have any contribution to the cost of the implementations, but some of them, two of them are starting having that. The current ones, two of the cases are already envisioning and using some contribution to the costs. On the potential user charging mechanisms, we have already, the actuals, we already see that there are all kind of user charging mechanisms. It was noticeable that there was some comments on the platform economics, some links with platform economics. So when the APIs are not anymore a part of an isolated product, but belong to an ecosystem, a digital platform ecosystem. And also they mention the service level agreements. Drivers, enablers, risk and barriers of API adoption. You know that the questions, because you've gone through the things. On the actual and potential, some, for instance, on the drivers, more or less, we see the only thing that are not considered as a driver is the national and local legal act, which for us was a little bit strange. But all these, the next slides, I will go through them very quickly, so that you can discuss on them on the breakout sessions. Then we have the risk and barriers, and the impacts of the API adoptions. Here are so both four types of impacts have been perceived in current API strategies. So we have social benefits, technical benefits, organizational benefits, and economic benefits, which is quite interesting. And we will have also a specific topic on the breakout session to go in deep on this economic aspect, considering all the graphs that we are going to see here and that we are going to present you afterwards. So on the impacts of API adoption, we have both economics, benefits and costs. On the cost, the costs are always related to pecuniary value. where the benefits consider also some social aspects like the creation of new jobs and so on. The impacts on social adoption, we will have also discussions on that. We have the organizational impact that will be discussed, if I'm not wrong, on the breakdown and the how and what.
Yeah, organizational. The previous one, yes.
Yes.
The organizational a bit less, maybe, but it can be discussed.
Okay. So then we have the technical benefits from the API strategies. And then we will go to the third part of, all the slides that I've been showing to you before will fall in 2 breakout sessions that Lorenzino will introduce later. And the EU vision will have to, is the third one. So we would like to understand with you and discuss with you how European Commission can support API strategies. We have a bunch of potential needs, and we would like to understand from all those aspects that we are putting here to prioritize them, to understand what are the more feasible ones, which are the more the one that will bring actually more benefits. We would like to also discuss on this session the stakeholders, some of the API economics at the EU level, barriers and risks at the EU level, and the sectors on which APIs are most likely be a very good solution to be adopted. Regarding the implementation aspects, this is not really falling into the strategy analysis, but several implementation issues have been recurring: the accessibility, the security, and the standards and discoverability. We will work on this for next in the coming phase of the project. Sorry to have gone so far, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have to give an applause to Monica because.
Most of the things, I understand that you haven't got any clear ideas on the slides right now, but we will have to discuss